G'day everyone, welcome back. Part 2 of What Are Humans?
Part 2.
Morning.
Morning.
It's dark still here. It's
Yeah.
early and cold and dark.
Yeah, you're brave getting up that early, but hey, I'm really honored that you would get up this early to fit this in. That's really cool.
Oh, of course, mate. Well, listen, the last time we spoke, I think we finished. It was 2 o'clock in the morning for you. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's swings and roundabouts, mate, as we say, and you know, this is what we do. We were discussing before we turned the mics on. Why do we do this? We do this because we have to, and after we did part 1 of What Are Humans, not only did we feel that we might have rushed through a few things because we had a list and we like getting through our lists, but we also wanted to expand a lot more on a fair few topics. And so the past couple of months, because it's been a while, mate, it feels like it's been ages since I've seen you because we haven't sat down in a little while.
Yeah.
And so What Are Humans part 2, mate? Now we're working off your list. Both lists are roughly the same. And you wanted to start with a bit of a recap, mate. There was a few things you wanted to say before we jump into our topics.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to say that both Darwin and the Bible are built off of mediocre explanations. We talked about that before, but that honestly, when taken apart, these both don't explain our anomalies here. And it's also a dialectic. And, ask anyone where humans came from, and you'll only get one of two answers, generally speaking, Darwin or creationism. And one side of the dialectic or the other. And it works for the controllers perfectly. I mean, you want to control people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you tell them there's 2 flavors of cola. There's Coke and there's Pepsi, but they purposely left out RC or any of the other brands, but if you really dig, as we talked about in the last episode, if you really dig into both explanations, both are very naive. I mean, to believe that nature created humanity is pretty naive because animals are perfect in their habitat, but humans are by far inferior, except for brain function. It's like kind of like an insult to nature to believe that nature in its perfection created such flawed beings, and
I agree.
yeah, it's equally insulting to believe that God would create such flawed beings. It's really like a low view of God. Like, I like to say this because I got this with somebody else that I met. But it's a pretty cool saying, is how big is your God? Because could God have created a creature that has later modified us? I would, and why would God stop at Earth if he's a creator when the universe is endless and also multiple dimensions, and it's kind of just like a low view of God. So those both are kind of insults to the explanations of both of those things, are insults to both of those things, Darwinism or creationism. Just like there's a lot of holes in it. It's a bed of sand, as we talked about before.
Everything is a bed of sand. We like to think that we know, and well, I mean, when it comes to Darwin, when I dug into Darwin, there was 3 or 4 competing theories apart from evolution. However, Darwin was I think we said last time, Darwin's father was a high-level Mason. He was also attached to the Cambridge University. And long story short, he knew the good old boys, and he was endorsed. And that's the reason that theory was pushed as the preeminent theory of human evolution. However, it's also one of those things that we don't ever hear a lot about anymore. Like, I can remember when I was kids that, they were looking for the missing link, right? We're going to find the missing link between Lucy and humans. And we still haven't found it. And they've been awful quiet about it for the last 20 odd years. And I don't think the reason for that is because they know that it's not real. Humans are not hominids. Well, they are, but they aren't, right? We are we're two arms, 2 legs, but that's about where it ends. There's not much apart from that. There's no joiner. Yes, we have Neanderthal DNA, and I know we spoke a little bit about that in the last episode. We'll probably cover off again in a little bit deeper because I know we've got more notes about that now. However, just because some of us have Neanderthal DNA doesn't mean we were Neanderthals. Neanderthals were separate to us. And I think as humans as well, we talk about Darwin. We're not finished, mate. We're not finished. We are in, like you said, nature's perfection. Every animal is perfect for its environment that it exists in.
They have a niche.
They have a niche. Exactly. Down under is a perfect example. Crocodiles, kangaroos. We have a very unique set of flora and fauna in this country that could only really survive properly in this country because this is where it evolved. This is where it's from. Whereas I'm sitting here wearing glasses. Okay. You're surrounded by ocean. Can you swim to America? Be like, if we were designed for this planet, we would be able to deal with this planet much more efficiently and effectively. And it's a tough conversation to have because you can't sort of deny that. Yet at the same time, it's like we were half designed for this planet. The sun feeds us. This, you know what I mean? There's definitely. It speaks of intervention, not evolution.
Yes, it does. Everything that lines up to that, and we'll definitely get into like why we don't fit in and everything. But it's just like, that both of these things are like, I guess it's like there's truth mixed with lies in both explanations. And when there's truth mixed with lies, most people will gravitate toward the truth within that lie and just buy the rest and go, well, okay, I don't know about that stuff, but yeah, it's okay. This is what I believe, and
this feels
blindly
right.
believe. That's what it is blind belief. I think you have to really be willing to go where the truth leads you. And I think people need to know the most important. I mean, what are the most important questions? I think I said on the last one, but it's like, who you are, where you came from, and why you're here. And these are huge questions. And most people outside of religion are Darwinists. So people buy the entire package of science. And, science has to answer for everything. This is something that I learned, well, actually from one of the Lloyd Pye videos that we can talk about, is that they have to come up with an answer for everything. Science has to have an answer for everything. They come up with a half-ass answer until that one is proved wrong. And again, they do this kind of thing. And it's like this with creation too. And it's like this with these megalithic sites too. They just beds of sand. And I also think we as humans need to be humble enough to admit that we don't know everything. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people, because science has to give you an answer. Well, we don't necessarily have the answer. How about that? And that would lead to more truth seeking, and they don't want that. So
I think there's some, I've been listening to a few different things recently. We have adapted this binary mentality, ones and zeros, black and white. Is it yes or no? There's nothing else apart from that. However, these scientists that we look back to, some of them were religious, some of them were spiritual, right? A lot of these old scientists like to get high. They were, you know what I mean? Like these guys were not these stoic three-piece suit, big chalkboard type people. That's not who they were. However, in order for, I think it comes back to the element of control. This is what it is. We know what it is. We don't know anything, right? And I think this, you have to know that you don't know. The problem is, I think, and look, it comes back to certain type of humans and whether that's actually a design flaw or there's been certain type of humans designed to do certain types of things. I know we want to have a deeper conversation about that. However, knowing that you don't know can either be very freeing or it can be very scary. And I think for a lot of humans, it's scary and it puts them outside their comfort zone. Humans don't like being outside their comfort zone. So they go, oh, yes, no, scientists know, back to sleep. However, science in itself, especially over the last 5 years, has become a religion. Science is a religion. It's not a doctrine. It's
scientism.
Scientism, exactly. And I think these shows that we're doing, there could be 3 or 4 episodes in these ones because we've got a long list of details that we want to get into in detail. And the reason being is it's such a long discussion that needs to be had because the evidence for us not being, or not necessarily not being from around here, but being modified from something else, is there's actually a lot to that. We talk about the beds of sand of Darwinism and all the things we look into. The reason we need to do multiple episodes on this topic is because it's not a bed of sand. There is many, many, many things that need to be discussed in this topic. So, yeah, look, I really enjoyed part 1. However, I've been looking forward to this one because I want to really dig into this stuff, mate. So,
yeah.
Do you want to kick us off? We're going to start with fossils. Or do you want me to kick us off? Or do you want Lloyd to kick us off? We can get Lloyd to kick us off.
Well, yeah, we can get Lloyd to kick us off. So fossils. But yeah, there's just some great points that you had there, though. People don't like to be in that like, I don't know, or, they like to have an answer because it, their comfort zone. You're totally right on that. And what I think a lot of people are missing in their brain is to be able to put something somewhere that they don't know and leave it until they get more pieces of the puzzle. Like that is the hallmark of someone that has holistic intelligence, is to be able to hold a piece of a puzzle somewhere in your brain and go, well, I don't know the answer to that. It is uncomfortable, but I'm going to save it there till I get another piece of that puzzle. And so that's where the frame of mind that people need to be in when listening to this show continuing, because this stuff, those questions I just phrased a little bit ago, who we are, where we're, why we're here and all that, those are questions that we need to really take our time with it, because I think it's these are huge questions. That's why this is going to be a multi episode little rant we're on here, or series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for those that have fear around knowing that you don't know, release that, because knowing that you don't know opens up so many more possibilities. It's not a negative thing. It's like, well, if you don't know, okay, cool, that means anything is possible.
Yeah.
That means you can do whatever you want. That means you can explore and be and just do. I think there's a freedom in that. And, look, the reason we do this, mate, is because we have to. We do. Okay?
Yeah.
And, I think we just do this. This is what it is. However, the reason we do this is because we know that we don't know, and we're trying to figure out. We're trying to unlock the code. We're trying to chant it down. We're trying to figure this thing out. This is the whole reason for this stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, all right. Well, I'm going to let Mr. Lloyd Pye, may he rest in peace, take over. UTC will be reading Everything You Know Is Wrong in the future. Okay, that's one of the books we're going to start reading. We're going to go through it chapter by chapter because I think it needs it. But this is part 2, the fossil record. The fossil record of supposed pre-humans is so pitifully incomplete. If every fragment of pre-human fossil ever found was laid out together, they would not cover half a tennis court. Entire species are often projected from scraps of jawbones and pieces of skulls, and full skeletons are not found until 50,000 years ago. When a few Neanderthals inexplicably buried some of their dead, that paucity of data allows its interpretation to be blatantly subjective and therefore highly controversial, which means only a fraction of our knowledge about pre-humans can be considered true beyond doubt. Everything else is merely the opinion of experts and specialists doing their best to shoehorn into place a great deal of evidence that simply does not fit the Darwinian model. Another way of saying this is that anthropologists and paleoanthropologists spend a great deal of time trying to pound square pegs into round holes. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
By far, the biggest round hole confronting them is the so-called missing link between pre-humans and humans, which is every bit as elusive and legendary as UFOs, Nessie, or Bigfoot. Every discoverer of every new fossil hominid does all the shoehorning they can to get away with to try to position their find as close to as possible to the presumed direct line leading from pre-humans to humanity. Unfortunately, the vast majority of what they have to work with is clearly square pegs. So a great deal of hedging, fudging, and outright deception goes into their efforts to portray humanity as evolving towards its high state of consciousness and self-awareness from a single type of primitive creature that also produced our closest genetic relatives, apes, monkeys, baboons, and orangutans. Notice this is not the 19th century misconception which lingers to this day. Humans did not descend from our hairy skin, we descended with and alongside them. That misconception began soon after the origin of species appeared, in the first salvos of the war between the creationists and the Darwinists. In 1860, the mass media consisted of newspapers, which the creationists of that era dominated. Many used their power by making all-out assaults on Charles Darwin and his abhorrent theory, most often by cartooning his head grafted onto an ape's body. These created These created a lasting impression of humans evolving from apes, which is not what Darwin postulated. He said humans and apes shared a common ancestor that lived somewhere in the depths of prehistory, but they did not precede us on the lower rungs of our evolutionary ladder. I just want to read the next one as well. Fossil bones are so rare because it takes a highly unique set of circumstances to create them. First, death must occur in such a way that the corpse can be covered by sediment before it is consumed by scavengers. The preferred methods are burial. Before burials were routine, death in or near shallow water. I want to come back to burials of routine because there's more evidence. It's interesting because this was written in the 90s that how much stuff has actually come forward since then. It's fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
In those cases, the flesh beneath the sediment would quickly rot away, then minerals in the muck would gradually leach into the bones left behind. Over hundreds of years, minerals would replace the bones with exact stone replicas of themselves. As fossilization occurs, more sediment piles on top of the fossil, while the land it has become part of the shifts, twists, buckles, and folds as plate tectonics constantly reshape the planet's crust. Those movements, along with weathering or mining or other excavations, occasionally expose fossils to view, sometimes after a few thousand years, sometimes after millions. So any fossils discovery is the end result of improbabilities stacked on improbabilities. They must not only appear in a position to be found, they must be found by someone who can recognize them for what they are. That makes each one's detection a near miracle. And I think that when I read that, I was like, I can't make that any better. The miracle that needs to happen for a fossil to even be found it's unbelievable. A set of bones to even be found. I think it's something like 90% of species on this planet are now gone. If you go back through the millions and billions of years, if that's what we believe happened, every cataclysm, there's only echoes, mate. We're not dealing with a solid set of data. They're probably the only thing I would add to that because of the topic is that we are pretty sure now we've found multiple burial sites of Neanderthals with jewelry, with this, with that, and Denisovan as well. So the Neanderthals did bury their dead. They did have reverence. But I mean, I would say when this book was written, they still believed that Neanderthals were just, big apes. Whereas I think with the art and everything that's been found recently over the last 25 years, Neanderthals may not have been as primitive as we first thought.
Yeah. Yeah. The fossils, though, that's a really important thing to say, that it takes a really unique set of circumstance to create a fossil in the first place. It's not just this simple, oh, yeah, I just found a bones, if you dug in a graveyard, people buried 300 years ago, I doubt you're going to even find any bones left. Hardly. It depends on the climate, but like here, it would be rare. And these things are a whole lot older. So the chances of finding anything is pretty hard. Yeah.
Mm. And again, what does cataclysm do to the fossil record?
We don't know.
We don't know. That's another ongoing discussion that we keep having, is what does cataclysm do to the fossil record?
Right.
Right. And it's, the other thing is too, when we come to these big universities, and especially those that, how do we say, believe in the evolutionary model, they will ignore any fossils or any evidence, any UPART, anything that exists outside of that. They won't even acknowledge it. And I think, you can't come to fossils. Yeah, sure, there's been some fossils found. Where are they now? Where are, we go back to, we're probably going to get to giants at some point, but let's say, what if 1% is true? Back to the UTC thing. What if 1% is true of all the stories we both heard about giant bones?
Yeah.
Where are they? What if 1% is true? And when it comes to fossils as well, what about the footprints that are now 3.4 with? They found footprints. I think we agreed that. Well, I know there was some footprints found in the Mediterranean. They estimated to be 5 million. I think there was some footprints they estimated to be 2 million. So I think we said 3.5. We gave it 3.5, right?
Yeah.
So that when we say footprints, that is, as far as we can say, a hominid footprint, 5 toes, arch foot, walking through the mud at 3.5 million years.
And these are hominids, not humans, though. So that's the difference, right?
But this is what we're saying. We're saying hominid because it's a 5-toed, heeled, ball feet. So yes, we're saying hominids because we don't know whether it's humans.
Yeah.
However, the miracle of fossils, and again, they hang on to such a small amount of data to extrapolate PhDs and books and God knows what else, and years and years and years hanging off a jawbone, where you extrapolate an entire skeleton out of a jawbone. I mean, How do you even? What are we talking about there? Like, that's not right. Yeah.
No. It's again, everything's just a bed of sand. And so many transitional fossils are so that here's something that I took note of here. Many transitional fossils are needed for the missing link, not just one. They act like they're just going to find this one skeleton that's going to complete this visual transition. It's like they need a bunch of them. They always put all the skulls together, like, oh, we just need this extra one, and we'll have it all, sewed up. No, they need like a bunch of different things in there, and and why aren't there transitional fossils? Like, we don't have any transitional fossils in the fossil record, period. Like, not a single human bone in the pre-human fossil record. It's like there's so much. And we went over in the last one, I think we did talk about how bones in the primates are much thicker than ours. So why would our bones evolve to being less thick? Why would we evolve less strong to survive in a world where we need this strength to be dominant species here on the planet? It makes zero sense in even the evolutionary sense.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I think is there anything else we want to talk about with fossils before we move on? I really just wanted to make sure that we highlighted what a miracle it is that any fossils are found ever.
Yeah.
And so much is lost between the ice sheets. So much is still yet to be found. Each turn of the spade can change history in a way that we never understand. However, you are right. Not a single human bone found in any pre-human skeleton.
Yeah.
So whatever they do have doesn't match us at all. It's not us. It's not us. And you're totally right. A Neanderthal, a Denisovan, bigger bones, stronger brow, stronger forehead. The thing about a Neanderthal or a Denisovan is you can probably loosely draw a line that they may have evolved from an ape, or because they seem to be that they would have been stronger than us. They had bigger bones, thicker brows. And I think we used the analogy that I think we both drew out of one of the Lloyd Pye books and the talks that we've been looking at, is that a Neanderthal or a Denisovan could take on a lion.
Yeah.
They were actually built to take on the animals, the the predator animals that exist on this planet. Whereas we use our brain to get around that. And we use tools and spears, and we built the bow, and we did this and we did that. We are not designed to take on a lion, whereas these other versions of hominids potentially could, or survive it much easier than we can, because and look, to say nothing of the fossil record, there is no understanding as to how we got to where we are, right? Because how did our brain flick over to be able to do what we're doing now? I mean, one of the things I like to trip out about every now and again, mate, we're very good friends now, but you're in Hawaii. I'm in west of Brisbane. We're having a live discussion across the airwaves. Like everything that surrounds you in your house in Hawaii, everything that surrounds here in the sanctum, all came out of a human brain. Like, we have manifested and built amazing things around us. Yeah. And we are only just barely observing apes and orangutans and stuff like that using basic stone tools or using basic spears. However, again, I think the spear thing's interesting, because what if, because these guys follow these troops of apes and monkeys around the jungle, right? And they have the big booms on their cameras and stuff like that. I don't know. They're like, oh, we're watching them evolve. They're coming into the Stone Age. No, I think they're watching you. Because and you've got sticks and stuff. They're watching you and they're imitating. They're not evolving, right? Oh, we're just going to sneak around the monkeys in the jungle. No, you're not. The monkeys not.
Right? They know you're there. They knew you were there before you.
Exactly. They knew you were there before you knew they were there. Like, this is.
Yeah.
It's interesting, mate. It's fascinating. Anything? Do we want to? Is there anything else on fossils we have? We had the Laetoli track, solidified ash. That's the 3.5 million. We had there's the footprints in the Mediterranean at 5 million. There's the tracks down here as well. I'm trying to remember what number they were, but I think they were plus 300,000-400,000. Where there's and it's a hominid running across a mud flat. The curious thing about that is they've measured the distance between each of the strides of the footprints, and this dude was sprinting. Whatever he was running from, he was after it. And he left tracks. Like, that's the reason they're there. He was sprinting through the mud as fast as he could be carried. But again, down here in Australia, not sure which cataclysm we're going to talk about that did it, but we used to have predator animals down here, and we don't anymore because they were wiped out by one of the cataclysms that came before. So, actually, here's a fun story, talking about fossils before we move on to the next topic. When me and my wife first got together, I used to tell her about giant wombats, right? And there used to be giant wombats here in Australia. Anyway, long story short, she thought I was taking the piss, right? She thought I was just trying to be funny.
Yeah.
I took her on a date to the Queensland Museum, and in the Queensland Museum is one of the only it's not. And this is the other thing too about fossils. Any skeleton you see in a museum, that's not what they found. A lot of that stuff has been made and molded, and they've actually made bits to fit it. That's not.
Yeah. I was going to actually say that like all the dinosaur bones and stuff are plastic stuff that So that's a rabbit hole. But like, why aren't we seeing the real bones? But anyway.
Yeah, the bones that you see, most of, especially the larger full skeletons that we see in museums and stuff like that, that's not what they found. They are molds supposedly taken from the bones. Look, there's a whole dinosaur versus dragon conversation we could probably have, not for today. We're on humans today. However, so long story short, I took her to the museum and there's a big, massive, giant wombat skeleton. She's like, "Oh, I thought you were just being mean to me." I said, "No, it's a giant wombat." But I mean, when I say giant wombat, Loomis, well, you've been in the sanctum, as big as this room, man. It's just like, that'd wreck your campfire, wouldn't it? You're sitting around roasting marshmallows. A big giant wombat comes and messes everything.
Oh yeah, could mess a human up really bad, even if it's not a predator.
Well, this is the thing, that was an omnivore, that was a prey animal. So there was predators that used to, so it's there's the evolutionary chain as well. And I think probably before because we're speaking about dinosaurs and fossils and stuff, I think we're gonna, one of the episodes here, we're gonna go into a bit of the weirder side of this stuff, and I want to put a note in the glyphs in India of people riding stegosauruses and triceratops and
okay, we'll have to do that. Yeah, that's interesting.
So is there anything else about fossils, mate, before we move on to I just want to cover off fossils because
I don't think I have any more on fossils other than just basically what you read solidifies that for me.
I think just to put it into perspective, Lucy's 3.6 to 3.8 million years ago, apparently. 4 to 2 million upright chimps and gorillas. And then they reckon roughly 2 million years ago, hominids. But again, the other thing about carbon testing and all these sorts of things that we've spoken about in the past, it comes back to what we started with. We know that Lucy was here 3.62.5 million years ago on a Wednesday. That's how, you know what I mean? That's not, they don't. Any of these carbon testing, any of these age testing models, doesn't matter which one you look at, the further back you go, the less accurate they are. They're literally just throwing darts at a dartboard at some point. It's like, at 10 o'clock on Tuesday on the 8th of the 1st in 2.6 million years ago, Lucy died at 10 o'clock. No, that's not, we don't have,
No, we don't. And carbon dating too is really, I question it a lot. When I had Nikkiana Jones on my show a while back, who's in the Sacred Site documentary, she actually went to school as I think it was a geologist, and she really broke that down, how she doesn't believe carbon dating is very accurate. And I was like, oh, that's a really good breakdown. I can't remember what she said word for word, but it was something to the extent that that it really isn't as accurate as we take it for,
No, the further you go back, the wider the window. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And basically they just take a median. So let's say we did a test, right? Test comes back, it's between 15,000 and 17,500 years. They go, it was 16,125 years ago is what it was.
Yeah.
I don't know that. That's
but they'll argue to their death that they do know that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it depends on that. Absolutely.
Well, okay, let's move on then, I guess, from fossils. Where were we going to go from here? Talking about, let's see. Hominids, Neanderthals, Sasquatch, that kind of stuff, I guess. I can say just right off the bat, and I think, I don't know if we really affirmed this or confirmed this in the last show totally, but my thoughts on Sasquatch or Bigfoot, this probably was the most complete, natural, evolved primate that this planet had, and that might explain why you find those holes drilled in the onyx beads. That might explain jewelry. They could have been a little more advanced than we thought, but when these beings came here to modify, they realized that these primates, these fully evolved primates, weren't able to be controlled as a slave species. So therefore they had to modify. So I think maybe they were more farther along than we might even give them credit for. But I don't know. Anyway, I thought I'd break that as an icebreaker into this here.
Oh, look, I definitely think so. I mean, yeah, you've got the onyx beads that have got drilled through. You've got bones that have been found with holes drilled through them. There's, if you are to believe some of the things, again, you have to, when we're talking to when we're saying how advanced were Neanderthals and Denisovans, you have to bring UPART into play. You have to bring out of place artifacts into play, because there's many out of place artifacts that are prior to the evolutionary timeline that can't be accounted for as to where they came from. And as I say, the few burial caves, I think it was in Russia, was the Denisovan one, was in Russia. They found a few different caves with burials, and it looks like it's like a burial. There's jewelry in there. They've given them things to take into the afterlife. There's obviously some sort of ceremony that's taken place. And within those things, as you say, there's beads that have got holes drilled straight through them, were made of onyx, which is very hard to drill through. There's primitive jewelry as well, beaten metals and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, how advanced were these versions of primates, if we're focusing on Neanderthals and Denisovans? Because we are led to believe, and I think that's the key here, right? We are led to believe, right, that they were similar to us as far as visually. Because we only have, we probably should put a note in this, mate. Do we actually have a full Neanderthal skeleton? I think they do. One of the Denisovan skeleton, I think they do now.
Yeah, I don't know. Not sure.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put a quick note. I'm just gonna put a quick note there.
Well, just to think though, what if, again, carbon dating? Oh, they found these onyx beads or jewelry in these places. Could though we be off on that too, and that some indigenous people came later into those same areas and had jewelry in there, and they're mistaken that it was the Neanderthals that made it, but it could have just been later in history these indigenous people with their jewelry came in there. And that's another thing too, because again, we're coming from mainstream science is telling us that they made this.
We are led to believe.
Yeah, we're led to believe. That's why. Yeah.
And well, look, the other thing is too is like, we are led to believe. However, how do you drill a hole through a bead of onyx?
Well, yeah.
How do we do that?
Even a primitive indigenous person, that's pretty advanced.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. Take the Australian indigenous as we understand them. Did they know how to drill a hole through an onyx bead and make a bracelet? I don't know. No. And because that would require a level of tooling that, as far as I understand it, we didn't think they had. Right. Even in a most basic sense. So, so I want to come back to what you said about, so Denisovan Neanderthal, we are led to believe they are similar versions of us, a bit tougher, maybe a bit taller or shorter, depending on who you believe. And they are a cousin to the human, is what we're led to believe, right?
Yeah.
But you think that the Sasquatch, Sassy, the Yowie, the abominable snowman, take your pick, right? You think they are potentially a highly evolved hominid? Do you think that might be the?
I think so. If we're looking at if we're looking to say that they're true, they're real, and I feel like there's enough stories in the world that's pretty much says, yeah, they're real. There's too many sightings. There's too much to just brush off and say, oh, that's complete bullshit. People making up this creatures in the forest, you know. So I'm thinking that that be the most highly evolved, and that's why we don't see them too, because they are masters of their universe. They smell us way before we get to them,
Absolutely. Yeah,
and and they're not panda bears. Like we mentioned, panda bears are not very smart, and they hid from humans forever. We gave that
I've
example in
used
the
that.
last one.
I've used that so many times since we did that last show. I'm like, 'cause it blew my mind. How long did it take us to find a panda bear in the 1800s when we still hunted for our food?
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, 60 years. Let's just
60
remind
years.
people.
Yeah, 60 years.
3 generations. It was the story was it was 3 generations of one family spent hunting a panda, and they only found one in 60 years. Big dumb panda that eats bright green leaves and is black and white. So again, something that's evolved on this planet. And like we just talked about the monkeys imitating the documentarians. Oh, they're doing this, don't it? No, they watched you walk into the jungle and allowed you to film them. That's what they've done. They, because again, I don't know if you've hung around monkeys or orangutans or anything else like that. Let's not pretend for a second those things aren't switched on, that they are not sentient beings. They most definitely are.
Yeah.
Like they're definitely aware of their environment for sure.
Yeah.
And if that, and if a Sasquatch or a Yowie is a highly evolved version of that, then for sure, absolutely. And I think the thing is, we already know the is it Homo pithecus? Is that the one? Homo pithecus? Is that the
Australopithecus or
Australopithecus? Sorry, yeah, Australopithecus. We already know that the Yowie existed, right? They're quite happy to say that Australopithecus did exist at some point. That's part of their evolutionary chain. They're happy to say that. A large, hairy hominid Australopithecus, they're quite happy to say that they existed because, or have they got a full skeleton of an Australopithecus as well? Maybe we need to put a pin in that for next time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So just put skeletons, mate. Do we have skeletons? I'm just going to put skeletons, and then I'm going to look into that for our next one because we probably should have looked into that.
Yeah, we should. No, but here's the thing that really fucks up the the whole evolutionary thing is the not really jumping ahead, but just kind of saying that the overlap where there were humans next to
Denisovans next to the Neanderthals.
Yeah. So how does that work? Because we don't see, going back to not seeing transitional species, we don't see that today in our modern world where there's I don't know, mate.
I've met a few Neanderthals.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're still here with the overlap then. Yeah. I know a few. Yeah. Yep. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, I feel like a Neanderthal.
Yeah, I got to say, it depends on
coffee.
You leave me in the bush for too long, I might turn into a bit of a Neanderthal.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Look, and you are right. That is an interesting thing that we coexisted, as far as we understand. We are led to believe that we coexisted with both Denisovans, Neanderthals, and Homo sapiens existed on the planet at the same time because they can find echoes of through the DNA of those 3 species in certain humans. So, basically we outfucked them or we outfought them. That's the only 2 things that happen.
Yeah. And I would say we scared them into their environment, and we weird humans decided to build cities and roads and, all kinds of stuff that probably scared them away. And, maybe there was a battle for a while. Maybe there was a battle between the humans and these creatures. Like, you guys get the fuck out of here. We're the dominant species. I don't know. That'd be an interesting lost in history completely.
Well, I mean, I had a thought while I was just listening to you, and I'm looking at your background, which is, one of the maybe the pyramids in Hawaii.
I
However,
wish I was. It's
I
Mexico.
know that's Mexico.
Yeah.
And well, it is, mate. There's just we just haven't found it yet. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But what exists in that jungle behind you? Do we even know? We don't know. They still find new species of animals and new species of insects and plants and flowers and stuff all the time. All the time. Yeah. And, don't forget, well, if that's South America, most of that jungle was planted. Most of that jungle was, it's an agriculture experiment.
And if this is the site that I think it is behind me, this site behind me is like 2% excavated, like just sites alone, not just species. So I mean, we don't know shit.
We don't know anything. No, we don't. We don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I'm yet to go yowie hunting, and I think and I'll just reiterate what I said last time. My opinion on that has changed mainly because of the men that I know that have had experiences. So yes, Daniel and Brian, I think it was a primal experience was the episode in the back catalogue for people to go back and have a listen to. That's a very old UTC episode, however, very good.
Good.
That really changed my perception. And then I went and asked some of the most stoic cowboys, rangers that I knew, and they're like, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they definitely exist. They didn't even hesitate. And then our resident hunter, Woody, went out with Daniel, and he had an experience. And he's like, mate, I can't explain what happened. There was definitely something there. And I believe him. Like he's our resident hunter. He's our resident. He's like, yes, that I now believe as well. It's like, wow, okay. So I've had to shift my perception on that. And the panda thing definitely helped with that. It's like, well, yeah. And you're right. If that's the evolved hominid, then yes, they are masters of their environment. They would smell you coming a mile away. Right. And this is because we don't understand that. And here's the other thing too, to add into that. As I've been getting into bow hunting, I think there's definitely a few things we did early on where we would have showers with soap and all that sort of stuff before we went hunting. And that's a big no-no. You're supposed to not have a shower. You're supposed to actually sink into the environment so you become your smell is not your smell is different. We smell, right? And the animals can sense that. And if a yowie is a more highly evolved version of that, then they can see us, smell us from a mile away.
Yeah, they can. So, and then just to reiterate, we've said it before, what came from the Lloyd Pye video, but totally, we have not foot surveyed the world, not even close. We're not even a smidgen, a little tiny bit close to know what's really out there. So to debunk it because you haven't seen it is pretty bad. But I think, I've been on the fence with Sasquatch believing because I haven't seen anything either. But doesn't mean that it isn't there. And I think we just have to go with all the stories worldwide. And there's something there, like you say, the 1% rule. There's something there, and I'd say it's even more than 1% as we look at all the, the evidence and footprints and tracks and get into all that kind of stuff, of course. But yeah.
Look, we might come back to that because I know that I want to come back. Rex Hunt, unfortunately, he's passed away now. And he's got an amazing back catalogue of things that he found. He drew some very long bows as far as some of the megalith stuff down here. But the castings and some of the things he took as far as his yowie research was very, very, very interesting. I might come back to that another day. We put. Look, I don't know how many pins we've got. I wish someone kept track of them.
Well, I have to go back and list their own stuff to go, oh yeah, that okay.
Yeah, well, that's right.
If we want to think of them as like bowling pins, we're knocking a few down with this series, though, at least.
Absolutely. So is there anything else we wanted to talk about? Well, there's the Dragon Man. He came
Yeah,
up to,
yeah. I mean, no, I don't really have more to say that we didn't already say last time. But I think since we kind of really, well, we didn't rush through it, like we weren't intentionally rushing, but this deserved, even last episode, everything we said deserved a flesh out, and that's what we're kind of doing now. So, but I'm pretty good with moving on now. I think from hominids and stuff, probably.
Well, the Dragon Man, the Dragon Man's probably the only other thing to mention. So,
yeah,
you know, again, the Dragon Man, the story of the Dragon Man was there was a skull found in a shop in Asia somewhere, and it didn't match what they thought it was, and turns out the Dragon Man is Denisovan. Is that correct?
yeah. They classified it as a Denisovan.
Yeah, and it's the most complete Denisovan skull we have as well, I think. Don't quote me on that one. We probably need to do a bit of skeleton research, mate, for the number 3.
I think so. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the brow ridge is massive on the Dragon Man.
Absolutely massive.
And that's not human. So, but, you know, we don't have that. So that's the thing. But it's definitely a hominid of something sort, you know? And what if the Dragon Man is what we call Sasquatch? You know, because like Lloyd Pye was saying, Denisovans and a few of the other ones they classify Neanderthals could be just different types of what we call Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yowie, you know?
Well, it go back to what Lloyd said when we started with the fossil, is that anytime any of these people find something, they try and shoehorn it into the narrative. It put a square peg in a round hole. They have to, because the bottom line is, as we both understand, if you don't put a square peg in the round hole, whatever they discover won't be even spoken about. Like it won't even make it into the journals. It won't make it into the universities. It won't make it onto the internet for us to even try and research the papers. In order for it to actually even get out of the research bubble, it needs to be towing the line of the narrative.
Right. I mean, quick little story here. A site that's in the sacred site too, you know, hush, hush, but it's we found some slabs, and then I found all these newspaper clippings, and so one of them went to what's called the Bishop Museum here, which is the largest collection of Polynesian artifacts in the world. So I've written them, sent the article, like I said, you know, this is a real, you know, article from the newspapers in the 1800s. I'm like, here, you know, so I'm throwing the ball in their court. It's like, where did this artifact go? Well, they won't get back to me, but I'm assuming it's like many things where they have I don't know where this goes pile. Okay, let's lock it in the basement because we don't have an answer for it. So because they can't even make an answer up for it. So or it would change history. So that's the thing we're talking about here with a lot of these bones. It's like they're like, well, let's just, you know, put it in the lock it in the basement. We can't deal with that. You know, it's gonna throw off our professor's whole thesis.
Well, so here's a pop quiz. How many pieces of logged oopart is there in the world? I mean, oopart is an out of place artifact. Do you know the number?
No idea.
75,000 plus.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the known pieces of oopart around the world. Now, an out of place artifact is something like the hammer they found in the coal seam. It's the gold chain they found deep underground. It's the wagon wheel they found deep underground. It's this, it's that, it's the other. 75,000 plus pieces of oopart that exist on the planet that we even know about. That we know about. That's a general number that can be thrown around that is accepted. Yeah. I mean, so what's that? 75,000. So that's, what if 1% is true? That's 7,005. Well, that's 10%. But 750 is 1% of 75,000. So there's 750 items that say that our history that we've been told is not true. If 1% is true. Yeah. Like, what I don't understand, and we're diverting a little bit, but just to talk about this for a second. What I don't understand is the lack of critical thinking behind that, Loomis. Like, surely we're sitting here in our little, in our studios discussing this stuff. If you are a professor or you are someone like that, 75,000 plus, is that not enough to shift your perspective? Is that not enough to even question the narrative?
Right.
Like, I don't understand. I don't
either. And where's the sense of curiosity? Like, well,
exactly.
I mean, like, we're truth seekers. So if anyone was in that mindset, of course, see, they breed that out of people when they go to these universities. But it's like, you'd think you go, well, I want to know where this thing came from because this thing is just anomalous and crazy. Let's go investigate the trail. They don't do that. That's the problem.
No.
That's the real issue here with this kind of thing is we're truth seekers, but they're not,
Yeah. Or were they? You know what I mean? Like, it's an interesting thing. Look, I know we're going to talk about variation of humans we're already an hour in. Look at it. Look at us. However, we're talking about variations of humans in one of these episodes. Well, I think that's the next one. Is it? We're talking about Homo sapiens next. That was the next topic on the list, mate. And I think when it comes to us as humans, we have literal stardust in our bones.
Yeah.
Like, just let me say that again. As humans, as Homo sapiens, we can test our bones, and there is literal stardust within us all.
Is there in animals? Do you know?
I don't know. We need to do some skeleton research. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably a new deep dive in this.
Yeah, we need to do some skeleton research.
Well, how about the dragon man? Do we have any more to say about that? I didn't. I just put it in, but I didn't.
No, look, the Dragon Man, I think the Dragon Man was a mystery. I think they painted the Dragon Man as the potential missing link, and they compared it to other Denisovan DNA that they have or other Denisovan pieces of skeleton that they have, and it matched that. So they painted the Dragon Man for a long time. Well, this might be the missing link. We found it in a random Asian shop somewhere. However, no, it is a Denisovan. They've accepted that as Denisovan. It's not the missing link, and it's not a separate species. I think for a long time they thought it might have been a separate subspecies of hominid. Like you said before, they're looking for that. They're looking for the missing link, and that's it's not the Dragon Man. It is a Denisovan skull, and it fits into the known understanding that we are led to believe. Again, I like saying that because it's true.
It's true. Definitely led to believe. Very important. Hey, and the fossil record does not include elongated skulls, giant bones, or even what caused giants to be among us, because they were among us. I mean, you got elongated skulls are real skulls, and of course they're any mainstream academic's going to say it was cradle boarding, but there's a definite
cradle
difference.
boarding or head binding. There's a definite difference. The Paracas, before we speaking of stardust, the Paracas skulls are definitely something else. They are not head bound, or as you say, the boarding or the binding of the skull. However, we need to say that why did those tribes do that? Why did they bind their skulls, or why did they board their skulls? They were doing it to look like the gods, man. That's what they were doing it for. They were doing it to honor their ancestors and to look like the gods. And there's, the Paracas skulls is one of those ones that comes up and no one likes to talk about it because they're not, as I say, they're not headbound skulls. They're completely different. They're also, I had a note here. Hang on a second. I had a note here. There's so many notes, mate. So it is early. I'm surprised. That was my first vocal stroke of the morning, man. I'm very surprised.
You're
I'm
doing pretty
impressed
good
with
an hour
myself.
in. Yeah, no problem. I don't know if I can do that.
The Neanderthal brain is 1500 cc.
Yeah.
Human brain is 1400 cc. Okay, so we need to take that into account. And the Paracas skulls were said to be 1500-ish plus or minus. So the Neanderthal brain and the Paracas brain technically are larger than ours. Now,
Yeah.
do we know if they have the prefrontal cortex? Do we know if they have the neocortex? Do we know? We don't know. We haven't found one with its brain still intact. However, the brain capacity of the Neanderthal and the Paracas is larger than ours. So does that mean anything? We don't know whether that means anything. However, it doesn't mean nothing. And
well, it looks like a regressed form. I mean, I don't know. Why would I don't know. I mean, I don't know to say that a bigger brain means you're smarter, but it certainly is.
That's what we're led to believe.
We're led to believe that. I mean, I don't know. I've met some animals that were smarter than some humans. So, yeah.
But I mean, before we leave Paracas behind, what were they?
Yeah. So the real interesting thing is they have one parietal plate instead of two like we do because of the no sagittal suture mark, or the mark from which your skull, to get through the mother's womb, that's what you need. So that's that's not something to be glossed over because, that also was the skulls in Malta too. They weren't necessarily elongated, but they had no parietal plate. They had no sagittal suture mark. And if you go back on my show and listen to Heather Arnold, who was also in Sacred Site, she talks about finding giant skulls. They found giants in Aruba, and they also have no sagittal suture mark. So it's interesting, and this coexisted while we're here. Regular humans are here, so that's an entirely different species, just like Lloyd Pye's star child skull too. Like that's another one we could get into, but yeah, all this was here with us.
So, but that begs the question, though, is that how did those species procreate? How did the mother survive?
Yeah. I
mean, because that's the whole
graphic.
Yeah,
how's it
exactly.
Ouch.
Yeah. How does the mother survive? Yeah, and if we're talking about intervention versus evolution, it's a maybe. Because I mean that's the other thing about humans. Humans don't fit. Every other mammal comes out of its mother's womb pretty much ready to go, right? So you talk about cows, horses, all that stuff. Like a baby horse is running within a day of it being born.
Yeah.
The human is the only one that is basically useless for the first 2, 3, 4 years of its life. It's it still needs to be cared for because it doesn't come out ready to go. Every other mammal that we observe does.
Yeah.
So then you've got these variations of these skulls without the sutures. What did they do to the mother? Like how did they procreate? How does that play out? Like that doesn't, as we understand mammals, how did that play out? I imagine an elongated skull is a little bit different to a round skull. You know what I'm saying? Like, without trying to be too graphic about it. However, it's a fair question. It's a fair question as to how did that. And again, if we talk about intervention versus evolution, let's pretend someone is modifying the hominid. Okay, they're going to observe the mammal. Okay, yeah, the mammal's ready to go. Maybe that's what they tried to do. and it didn't work out, and maybe they had to modify us to, the woman can only take the female human can only take a baby of a certain size before. I mean, even in today's modern times, it's still very dangerous for a mother to give birth, potentially, depending on the state of the baby and where it's at. However, it comes back to the humans don't fit. They don't. Well, they do, but they don't. And this is the thing. It's like they do, but they don't. The humans don't fit in this grand puzzle properly.
Right. Well, maybe we should move on to I don't know if you have any more to say about the Paracas or anything. I mean, it's just like, but just to say, just one thing to say.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah.
No, one thing to say is Brian Forrester came on my show in 2022 and we talked, and he told me about how they carbon dated those elongated skulls back to only 2,000 years ago. So it's not like they were this in line of these modifications of humans that, oh, we got this one wrong, we'll do it better next time. No, these were walking around us while we were here. So there's something to that. If the carbon dating is to be trusted, I think at least it's within that range of time, hopefully. But anyway,
we're led to believe.
Led to believe.
Led to believe. Yeah.
So Homo sapien makeup. That's the next thing. You talked about stardust. So we're part stardust and we're part Earth. I mean, it's
we're from here, but we're not.
Yeah.
This is the thing. We're from here, but we're not. And I think, again, we talk about the fact that I'm wearing glasses. We talk about the fact that, as males in our 40s, our bodies are starting to break down due to the injuries that we sustained as young men. Like these things that happen. If we were designed for this planet, we'd be able to swim better. We would be able to deal with the sun better. We'd be able to deal with the atmosphere better. The cold, the heat. We're not designed to survive, right?
No.
It's as I say, it was cold and dark when I got up this morning. If I was naked outside, I would have been very, very cold. Like we're not designed. We need clothes. We need.
And you can't see in the dark.
Yeah, we can't see in the dark. We need to modify our environment in order to be able to exist in it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Every other mammal we observe on this planet doesn't. Exactly. Yes, they will build shelters. Obviously, they'll build shelters. They will build nests and burrows and those sorts of things. They will hide in caves if it's too cold or too rainy or too windy. Sure. However, overall, no. They're fine. They're totally fine existing on this planet out in the wild. Whereas exactly. we've created an entire we've did our best to destroy the planet to create an environment for us to be able to survive on this planet. I think
that shouldn't be overlooked. That shouldn't be overlooked. That's a weird way to live on a planet. Like what?
Well, I go back to. I mean, and it's interesting. So I don't know what happened, Loomis, but at some point we're the next generation. We're getting older, right? I've realized that recently for some reason, and we don't. The previous generations before us will never know how much the first Matrix film affected us all. Okay. And to quote the Matrix back in the day, humans are a virus. They move to a place, they consume all the natural resources, they strip it bare, they destroy it, and then they move on. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's not untrue. It's not, I mean, you've got the Amazon as let's use your backdrop. Something, square kilometers of Amazon rainforest are still being destroyed every single day. Yeah. Just mowed down. And, like if we were from this planet, why do we have to do that to the planet that we're from in order to survive on it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that goes into a section I wanted to do about civilization just in general, but what we're doing is we're going by a model that goes way back to ancient Sumeria or possibly older, but like a model of living on this planet, it doesn't make any sense, like
Mhm.
to destroy your surroundings. And like if you go around a large city, all the resources are used up, so that city requires many resources around it to even operate. And it's
Mm.
just, it's like that's why in a city you leave it, and it takes a while to get to nature, and that nature's been fucked up from the city because they took a bunch of trees from there and stuff, so yeah.
Well, it's probably different in Hawaii because you guys are so remote. You've probably got a bit more of a buffer, but the average Woolworths or Coles or the average shopping center for food, right? Whole Foods, take your pick, whatever it is. The average, it's 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a local shopping center down the road. That shop has about a 2 week buffer. If that shop does not get a delivery within 2 weeks, there is no food there. If there is no food there, the entire town that I live in has no access to food.
Yeah.
2
It's
weeks.
even worse for us because we don't have connection to anything. So if we run out of food, we're fucked. Like, seriously. I just saw that the other day when we had that tsunami scare. I don't mean to go off subject here, but it's just like they're evacuating everybody. Everyone's evacuating at once. I was in traffic for 3 hours, and
Did anything happen? Nothing.
No, nothing. And they use that fear really well. I mean, we
Well,
had
they-
like
they-
tiny waves come up, but Hawaii is a surfing place, and we have waves all the time. It's like,
I was going to say, isn't Hawaii a mecca for surfing? Isn't big waves supposed to be a good thing in Hawaii?
yeah, right. Yeah, and these weren't even that big. So the thing is, though, people panic buy, just like with COVID. And yesterday before work, I usually grab a water bottle to, I from the store, and there wasn't any. I'm like, what? Because everybody panic buyed. So that's the kind of thing where, we're living in just a real temporal society where, like, 2 weeks, you're out of food. It's like, that's how close we live to chaos.
Well, so 2011 here in Brisbane, there was a major flood, and Kath was isolated. She lived in Moggle, and she was isolated, like cut off in all directions. The river came up all around her.
Oh, wow.
And they were isolated for about 11 days. And she said by like day 5 or 6, things started to get real squirrely, right? There was some stuff. You could see society fraying on its edges because they were totally cut off. Like they were being, stuff was being across boats, bringing in by boat and helicopter and stuff like that. But by day 6, you could see that, people were running out of smokes. They're running out of this. They're running out of that. And things were starting to get very interesting. We've designed a civilization that is so fragile. Like, as I say, 2 weeks, man, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, no food.
And they don't want us to live self-sufficient too. That shows the control system too. But you got hunter-gatherers, though, that have lived off the land for thousands of years and didn't need all this. So why did we ditch that model, or where did that model come from is another question. But I guess to get back on topic, well, go ahead.
To get back on topic. No, look, that is to get back on topic to Homo sapiens and hunter-gatherers. Are they one and the same? Well, obviously they are from a skeleton point of view, but this comes back to what are humans, the variation of human, right? There's a variation that needs to destroy and build and conquer and blah, blah, blah. There's a variation of human that does not need that at all. As we sit here and have this discussion, there would be uncontacted tribes in the jungle behind you there. There's uncontacted tribes in Papua New Guinea. There's, you know what I mean? Like, these variations of human exist within between us, and they don't want to build a tower and put their name on it. They are quite happy coexisting with the planet. And it's a fascinating thing. Are they different from us?
I mentioned that on our road trip we did together. Just we were spitballing, right? Because we were just all, just freestyle in the episode there. But I was like, well, what if the humans that were modified were just the hunter-gatherers to come live in civilization? And because you couldn't convince a lot of these tribes to go ditch their life and go and here, come into the city. We have it all great for you. I think a lot of them, like that was their universe. Like, why would they want to?
Oh, and there's countless stories in America, I know, that in the Americas of, the Indians coming in and taking people hostage, and then them, the great America mounts up to go and rescue these people, and they go to rescue them. They go, leave me alone, go away. This life is so much better than what we do. And I had a very small experience with that as well. We're gonna have to finish it pretty soon, mate. However, I had a small experience with that as well when I was invited into into the tribal land up in Papua New Guinea, and I spent 2 days there. And mate, by the end of the first day, I was like, how do I stay here? There was a veggie patch there. There was a pig pen. There was a fresh fish out of the ocean. It was clean. It was comfortable. Everyone was nice. I didn't have to, if I didn't want to do anything, I didn't have to do anything. Just chilled out. I helped chop some wood and did some things, to help with the tribe, while I was there. However, man, honestly, and into the second day, I'm like, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. I want to stay here. We've got it totally wrong. Totally wrong. Whatever this version, we're attached to a virus, right? We're attached to something that is not natural to our environment. And I think when I said before, we're from here, but we're not, why I say that is the last 3 years I've been doing bow hunting and learning how to do that and become proficient at that. Mate, that bow hunt, being in the bush with a bow and that being your intention, it activates something primal in you. It is something that you can't express to someone who hasn't experienced it, and it's hard to encapsulate. But there's a space that you get in, man, where your senses, like your hearing and your sight and your ability to sink into nature, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you access when you're doing that you don't have normal access to. And that's why I think intervention as opposed to evolution, maybe they took a hunter-gatherer and upgraded them, or something. I don't know, like it's because there's definitely something. I've had enough experiences, and you would have as well, in the jungle, in the bush, we both had enough experiences to know that in that environment, there's definitely a version that exists within us that sinks into that environment and really adapts to it and really wants to be there. Like it's amazing.
No, well, then that is the part of us that's part Earth. I guess what kind of debunks that hunter-gatherers were the ones that were modified is still hunter-gatherers are still Homo sapiens. And where did Homo sapiens come from? You'd still have to believe the Darwin version or the creation version, and that still doesn't make sense in the big picture that we're talking about. But it does. There is something about getting in tune with your earth roots, and I think we are part that for sure. And maybe just the fact that we don't grow up in those environments in nature like that we don't have what those people have, where they learn to adapt and they figured it out. But even them, some of them, not all of them, but they're not necessarily great in the environment. Like they kind of destroy areas too. They're not just like totally living with the environment, like
sync with nature. No,
yeah. Still different than any other animal.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
We are
look,
a regressed version of primates. That's what I think. We're regressed. So go with their idea that civilization is only 6,000 years old. How could we devolve that fast if we only went from hunter-gatherer to civilized in 6,000 years? Why would we, So I don't know. I know you probably got to wrap it up. So, but
yeah, we do need to wrap it up pretty soon. However, look, I think we pick. I want to think more about that. Let's pick it up. Let's pick it up when we come back, talking more about, because I want to talk about where we downgraded, where we upgraded, then downgraded. All right. I think let's pick up when we come back on Homo sapiens, because I want to talk about whether or not we were upgraded then downgraded. There's stuff to talk about with our DNA.
Our genes,
our genes, that sort of stuff, that, our gene has been switched off. We can only live to 120, but they've actually seen it switched off. If we switch that back on, how long could we live for? Did we live longer in the past? Are we to believe some of the ancient civilization stuff that we love and, that we have a lot of knowledge on? And again, well, look, psychological damage of a species who doesn't know its history. That was a note from you the other day. So that's, there's a number of topics, but let's put it down, and we'll pick up our discussion on Homo sapiens next time. I think, because there's DNA to be discussed. There's genes, there's abilities, there's, psychometric abilities, there's ESP, there's telepathy, there's, there's a whole raft of things that we need to open a discussion about as far as what are humans. Well, mate, we didn't. What do? We did like 3 dot points. So yeah, we're at least.
I think this is like a 5-part series. As far as I'm, it's okay though. I enjoy. Yeah. I mean, fleshing this out is important, because skimming past it doesn't give it justice. Not even.
No, it doesn't at all. It doesn't at all, mate. It doesn't at all. So look, man, What Are Humans Part 2? That's a wrap. A pleasure to sit down with you again, sir. Plenty going on behind the scenes with Sacred Site 2, with Chan It Down, with UTC. It's exciting times, man. It's exciting times. And, it just wanted to say it's an honor to be with you, man, because, we're both lifting each other up. We're both pushing each other forward, and we ain't stopping. It's
awesome. Yeah, we're always sharing with each other the progress that it's things are on the up and up all the time, and not just with Sacred Site, with just all the stuff we're doing here. It's just really fun. So I think the listeners are appreciating it too, because they're seeing things our shows going up in quality and unique topics and stuff, and
everything's evolving, man.
It's evolving the real way, not the Darwin way.
Not the Darwin way, the real way.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, thank you very much, guys. That's awesome.
Right,
What Are Humans Part 2? That's a wrap. We'll come back and we'll jump straight back into Homo sapiens and the variations. All right.
Sounds good. Mate. Okay.
Cheers, mate.
Take care.